What's up, everyone? I'm Javier Reyes, and this is Sound Advice. I wanted to talk about chord inversions and a couple of cool features about them. For those that don't know, a chord inversion is essentially taking the notes of a chord and rearranging them, right? And usually we have a first inversion, second inversion, and if you're in sevenths, you're in doing third inversions. So if we have this C major 7 up here, right? Each of those notes are a chord tone, right? This is the root, this is the 7th, the 3rd, and the 5th, right? So with the inversion, we essentially take one of those other notes, right? So for instance here, we can take the 3rd and put this as a bass note, right? We're still playing the same notes of this chord, the C major, but we're gonna have E, right? The chord tones are C, E, G, B, right? So we're gonna have E on the bass, right, for the first inversion. Here I have E, C, G, and B. So for the other inversions, you then put G as a bass note, and then everything else from the C major chord still applies. And then for the third inversion, it's B and the bass. So more or less, that's what inversion, what they all sound like is pretty much, right? That's E in the bass with G in the bass, and then with B in the bass. So for me, learning this was extremely useful, and I still use it quite a bit when I get stuck in a song or when I'm trying to write a song. If I'm trying to find harmony, if I'm trying to modulate to a different key, I often use the inversions to try to see what I can hear out of this original chord. And what I mean by that, we have this C major chord here, and when I play the first inversion, to me that no longer sounds the same way as this typical major quality sound, right? I'm hearing a bit of minor in there, a bit of ambiguity as well, right? The other thing that I noticed was that it's really just one note apart from an E minor 7. So to me, this was very cool to start seeing two chords, almost the E minor and the C major, related very closely, right? And essentially only by one note of difference. So this started allowing me to see the fretboard a whole lot better. I could connect chords that existed down here with chords that existed in other parts, and see why they worked very well together. If we take a listen to this second inversion, right, that's the same chord as C major, right? We have C, B, E, and G. This time we have G, the E, B, C. That to me sounds pretty different from each other. I'm hearing this dissonance right here. Gives me a cool vibe, that a bit of like ambiguous feeling. It does have this uplifting thing that normally we hear from major, but at the same time, that is not typical of a normal major chord, which is pretty cool. So the third inversion isn't necessarily the most exciting one, but in minor, the third inversion kind of looks like this, right? If I have this minor 7 chord, right? And then I play the minor 7th, this G. So, and that you might have heard in something like, right? Something simple like that. So yeah, the inversions really start allowing you to hear the same chord and very different voicings, right? Or different colors, if you will. So another useful thing with these inversions is using them with chord changes, right? If I have a simple 2-5-1, right? Something 2 to the 5 to the 1. I can start making that sound a little different where that doesn't have that typical change. I can also start doing to the first inversion of a 7 chord, right? We have, so back back to my 1, and I don't have to go down. Right, that's very generic-ish. A little nicer resolve in my opinion. Another cool trick is if I move in intervals in chords, right? So if I start at C major, then I go to E minor, then to G7, to B minor 7 flat 5. If I do that using these inversions, I actually don't have to do a whole lot of movement, right? If I start here, C major 7, to E minor 7, to G7, B minor 7 flat 5, to D minor. So to me, the really cool thing with this was moving up essentially an octave up in harmony, but just playing all of that in 3 frets. So yeah, that really opened my eyes with, kind of understanding the fretboard a lot better, or, not necessarily having to be a fret number player sort of thing, the whole fretboard is really optional for me at this point. So definitely mess around with some inversion stuff or experiment with it. Like I said, they're super useful whether you're trying to start a song, whether you're trying to come up with some cool chord progressions, find some harmony, modulate to somewhere new, etc. Very cool. So yeah. So I'd like to give a shout out to Richard Larson Guitars for hooking me up with this awesome classical guitar, which by the way have the Diodario classical nylon strings. So yeah, I love these strings. They're very warm and nice punch to them when I need it. So yeah, big thanks to Diodario, and peace.